I am a Catholic, but I'm a down low Catholic, somewhat. Not down low. I've never not admitted to being Catholic, but I don't usually make a deal out of it, and I don't promote myself as Mr. Catholic, and I don't regularly engage in Catholic apologetics. I'm far from being any kind of perfect representative of my faith. I mean, very, very far from being any such thing. But I do engage sometimes with Catholics online, and I am shocked by the number of times that I have actually come into conflict with or been at least annoyed by fellow Catholics online, Catholic apologists. It's happened so many times. It's happened more times than one would even expect. You would think that you would generally get along with your co-religionists, but there'd be a few here or there who would be annoying for this reason or that reason. But for me, I've just found a lot of them to be very wanting, or maybe something is just sort of, stuck in my craw concerning them. But I take that to mean that I take that as evidence that the faith has got something going for it, because if it was any other faith, I somehow don't think I would be having these kind of roadblocks thrown up at me in the form of fellow co-religionists all the time, making me think, oh God, he's part of the same church as I am. Ugh. Now, there have just been a couple who have been really, really bad, really, really, really bad in that particular way. And I'm not going to name any names right now. I'm past that, but you can look back at my history and see one in particular, a rather rotund individual who lives in the state of Washington, who is just the awfulest creature alive. Not to cast aspersions, but I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just telling the truth in his case. Anyway, I'm getting off the point here. Now, I have an appreciation for Dr. Taylor Marshall, but at the same time, I've had some problems with him as well, just to establish a baseline here, establish where I'm coming from here. He has put forth some messages that I've really liked. He first came to my attention with a short video that he did where he was talking about how he had this dream or this vision about all the things that were wrong with the church right now, and the church was like this sick woman, and we were all like akin to infants who were nursing at the breast of this sick woman. And the question was, well, that there's so much wrong with her. Is the milk still good? And he said, yes, the milk is still good. And I found that to be a really powerful, metaphorically speaking, very powerful take on all that's wrong with the church right now, and yet what could be said to be to endure within the church, in the sense that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Again, I'm not usually someone who slings Bible verses and talks about theological issues or anything like that, but it is something that is of interest to me, and is something that is a crucial part, I would say, of my life, as far as my thought, my way of dealing with the world. A big part of it concerns the faith aspect of things. So anyway, I wanted to talk about Taylor Marshall's latest video, because he had been on a long hiatus. Well, I say a long hiatus. I guess it had been a couple of weeks that he had produced no videos, and all of his fans were saying, "Where are you? Where are you, Taylor? Where have you disappeared to?" And there was alarm, there was panic, there was consternation, there was even some anger. Like, you can't leave us like this. This is not the right thing to do. And yeah, it was an unexplained absence, but he came back and he explained it. He said, I had to get away from all of the nonsense going on, and just have some time to meditate and be by myself and think about things. And I thought that was perfectly legitimate, perfectly fair, I have to say. And then he said he had waited until the inauguration day so that he could come back on and talk about how it turned out that Q was complete nonsense. And he knew that if he came back anytime before the 20th, that he would have people arguing with him about that, because there was a belief amongst these Q types, some of whom might be out there watching this video. There was a belief right up until the very end that, even when all looked lost, suddenly the trap would be sprung, and the mass arrests would take place, and Biden would get carried away amongst the perverts and scum, and pedos and the rest of them, and Trump would then ascend back to his proper role as president and proclaim, 4 more years at least. There was a lot of that going around right up to the very end. And he said, well, now that it's over, I can say that Q was just absurd. It was wrong. It was nonsense. The thing is, there are even people now who are saying, no, there's still a plan. There's still a plan. And this Q stuff is enduring even past the Trump administration, which I guess, I guess could have anticipated, or should have anticipated, but I still find it really pretty ridiculous. Anyway, main thing I wanted to talk about in this video of Taylor Marshall's, Dr. Taylor Marshall, as he calls himself, and he has earned his degree. Don't get me wrong. I still think there's something a little pretentious about flashing your doctoral degree that you've earned, is part of your name, but that's something that I guess could be argued one way or the other. I'm sure he deserved it. I'm not saying he's a fake or a phony or anything like that. Just, he could just be him, Taylor Marshall. But that aside, his take on why Trump lost and why things went the way they went in 2020, it basically, it was a little bit disappointing, but then again, it's sort of par for the course for Dr. Taylor Marshall. What he said was this has all happened because we're so low down and grody right now as a culture, and the church too has become so corrupt, and we allow abortion on demand. We allow all kinds of abominations to take place in this country, and so God has given us into the hands of our enemies, essentially. And so this is a chastisement. Now, there's nothing wrong with that message. It's a biblical sort of thing. There are lots of accounts. I'm not a Bible scholar or anything, but I do know there are lots of places within the Bible where the Israelites start worshiping false gods and start playing the harlot, as it's put in the King James Version, playing the harlot with non-Israelite populations. There really is quite a bit about miscegenation in the Old Testament. It's really something. You should read it and see. It's not a good thing. It's not something that is held up at all. Israelites are supposed to be with other Israelites, period. So but in cases where Israel gets corrupt and starts to perform abominations in God's sight, starts to worship false gods, starts to mix with other populations, and in so doing loses their adherence to the one true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That when this happens, it quite frequently plays out that God says, "Fine, you guys have really screwed things up, and now I'm going to punish you. I'm going to give you all up to your enemies, and you will face a lot of hardship until you get your act back together and start behaving the way that you're supposed to behave and start worshiping me properly again, and stop with these blasphemies and abominations." And so Israel gets the message, they clean up their act, and then things go well for them again. But then that, of course, leads to prosperity, leads to degeneracy, and it's sometimes an everly spinning cycle of you get prosperous, and then your prosperity makes you corrupt and makes you forget the things that brought you that prosperity, and then you start to embrace these things that you shouldn't embrace, and your sin increases, and then that leads you into hardship again. Well, that's what Taylor Marshall is saying in his latest video. And it's not that I have anything particularly against that as an interpretation, but I do have something against stating it as if that were something that must be the case. Stating that as if you were a prophet and God has told you this. Because God's will is quite inscrutable. And, we can always come up with, post facto, we can always come up with ideas and notions and possibilities for why this happened, why that happened. Maybe God was testing us. I mean, I don't remember anyone last year saying, I don't remember Taylor Marshall or any of the other very, staunchly conservative, pro-Trump people. I don't remember any of them saying we deserve. I bet Trump is going to lose, or that the system is going to fix things so that Trump loses the election because it's rigged that way. And yet we deserve that because we deserve to be. Oh, sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. We deserve to be placed into the hands of our enemies because of our abominable behavior. It's like that becomes the explanation when things don't go the way you want them to go. But Marshall is somebody who seems to want to read these kinds of interpretations of things. Like I can recall in March or April of 2020 when this whole virus thing was was being introduced, and the fear mongering over this so-called global pandemic was being yacked about endlessly. I was a skeptic of it from the very start. I still am. I continue to be. But I remember that Marshall's whole thing early on was like, yeah, this is the plague, and we deserve the plague because of our abominations. And it's like, that's his, that sort of seems to be his go-to. He states it very authoritatively, or authoritatively. He talks this way as if, as if he were getting this prophecy from God, which I think is a problem. I don't think it's a problem that he is very aware of how messed up things are right now, both within the culture and within the Catholic Church. I think that's a blessing. I'm glad that he's aware of that. I'm glad that he doesn't deny that. But I think reading things in to what is happening, because maybe some part of you wants to see God get wrathful. You want to see God's wrath emerge. You want to see God start kicking some ass, because you're so disgusted with, properly disgusted with the things that are, the things, everything that's wrong with the culture and with the church. But I just thought this whole, with his interpretation of the virus being some kind of plague, and yet we shouldn't. He was saying, the whole closing the churches thing was wrong, which I agree with him completely, 100% about. But he was saying, he was quoting some old account of how, the church remained open, and there was all this hardcore kick-ass kind of language about how, people were dying left and right, and yet the mass proceeded even over these people's dead bodies during the age of the bubonic plague and stuff. And I was thinking, why are you talking as if we are in the midst of an age of a bubonic plague? That was his take on this virus, this bogus virus, which is, even if it exists, it has barely changed anything as far as death rates, as far as, real impact upon the population. But it has been an excuse for the rulers of the world to do all kinds of things, to commit all kinds of atrocities that are damaging to us and to the economy, and that are blatant violations of what we are entitled to constitutionally, what our God-given rights are. So anyway, early on, Marshall really was not on board with any of that. He was just like, this thing is a plague, and it's what's going to take out it's a plague cast against the church, because of all of our unholiness and the behavior of the hierarchy. It's a response to, it's like he was wanting to see the fulfillment of some Fatima prophecy or some other Marian apparition. He was just very eager to read things into it, and very uneager to, at first, to see it as something, as a deception, as a sham, as a scam, as what I believe it ultimately was and is and continues to be, a scamdemic. But anyway, that was his take way back then in March and April. And now with Trump losing and the enemy, as it were, taking over, his interpretation is that this is our punishment. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. It's not like there's been some. It's not like that's a totally novel way to interpret what's happened. But I just have a problem with how categorical he is in stating this. And, because God's ways are not our ways. To sling a bit more scripture. And our ways are not his ways. So how can you really know unless you are a prophet, unless you are in a privileged position of knowing, of having some divine insight? And as far as I know, Taylor Marshall has not claimed to be a prophet. He has not claimed that he's heard the voice of God, and God has told him these things. But I do think that when we don't understand what's going on and we don't like what's going on, we have to be humble about, and also it's not even just a question of humility. It's just an awareness that ultimately it's hard to make sense out of why things happen. Now that doesn't mean you throw up your hands and say everything is just random and meaningless, because obviously it's not. You don't believe that. That's not, if you believe that, then you've already contradicted yourself, because what about the statement that everything is random and meaningless? That's an imposition of order on the randomness and the meaninglessness that you say is what rules the state of things. So, but anyway, without getting into that side category, you definitely don't want to just if you're a believer, if you believe in God, if you believe in the Catholic Church, if you're any kind of Christian or any kind of believer in any faith, that any kind of transcendent faith, be it Catholic or Protestant or Mormon or Muslim, or Jewish, if you are a religious Jew, or any other sort of faith, you can't say that things are random and meaningless, so I'm not saying that, but I am saying I really have a hard time with people who tell me, here's what's going to happen and here's why it's going to happen, and then they tell me afterwards, well, here's why it didn't happen. It's because we're sinful. It's because God is punishing us. Well, maybe. If you offered it as a possibility, or if you said, I can't help but think that, and then said what you need to say, that's one thing. But just to say, here's why it happened, and just put it all out there as if you knew, I think that's beyond your purview. And it works both ways. I mean, I was a big fan. I still do like Archbishop Vigano, and I liked and enjoyed his commentary on things and his exposure of the wrongdoings of the hierarchy. But there was some time near the end of last year when Archbishop Vigano was getting really chummy with Donald Trump, and I think maybe he met with him or corresponded with. He didn't meet with him personally, because I know Vigano's in hiding, but corresponded with him and then spoke out and said, Trump will win. It's God's divine hand will ensure that Trump continues to be president. I mean, was that prophecy, Vigano? It sure as hell sounded like it, and you were wrong. Now, if you're going to say, oh well, he was right because Trump did win, but then the election was rigged, and they said that he lost, but he actually won. Well, that may well have happened. I strongly believe that really could have happened, but that's not what the prophecy was. The prophecy wasn't that he was technically going to win, but then get screwed out of it. The prophecy was that he was going to win and that he would continue to be president. So he was wrong. So what business did he have giving this prophecy, delivering this prophecy? And Taylor Marshall talked about it on his channel, and it was talked about elsewhere. I think on the Vortex, the show The Vortex, they talked about it there, or whatever channel that is. I can't remember the name of that channel right now. But there was in both cases, and whether you're talking about somebody prophesying us being delivered by the hand of God, or afterwards, after the fact, prophesying that the reason why the hand of God didn't deliver us what we wanted, what would have been good for the country. I don't know. I think better for the country, but but for me, Trump was nothing but the lesser of two evils. So I'm not the true believer type. But Taylor Marshall was, and plenty of others were. So saying after the fact, here's the reason why we lost. It's because God is punishing us. Just be really sparing with this prophecy. Be sparing with the prophecy unless you receive it in a way that genuinely baffles you and that you can find no other explanation for it. Like the prophets of the Old Testament hearing the voice of God in the wilderness and hearkening to it and then recording it and then reporting it to the Israelites. I don't know if there was a way. I don't know if they employed any method of vetting whether they were really hearing the voice of God or not, or whether it was something else. But I would think that you have a responsibility. If you receive a prophecy, you have a responsibility to say I'm just a humble person. I don't know what took place, but here's what happened to me. Here's what I saw. Here's what I was told. Do with that what you will. But it seems like the people who prophecy in this way, they almost, whether they're Vigano saying Trump's going to win, or Dr. Taylor Marshall saying, oh, Trump didn't win because we're all sinful. It just seems like there's so little humility behind those gestures that it makes them suspect in my mind, in my eyes. It's like they're delivered with so much confidence. It's like you just know. And how can anybody really know? Unless, again, you're a real prophet. Then I guess you know. But I have yet to encounter such a person. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I have yet to encounter one. And you don't want to be talking like a prophet or acting like a prophet when you're not a prophet. Okay. So that's my take on Taylor Marshall's take on why Trump didn't win. Let me know what you think. I'll include his video below. And I know it sounds like I'm harshing on him, and I guess I have been a little snarky here in this commentary. but I do have mixed feelings about him. But I generally think that he's a good guy who's trying to do the right thing. I want to add that. I think he's a little cocky. He's a little I don't know. Something about him rubs me slightly the wrong way. He's got this thing where he says, if you don't say the rosary every day, you're not on my team. It's like he has to talk to other people like he's the coach of his high school basketball team, and we're all players on the team, and we're all we have to hearken to his word as an authority figure. That kind of grates on me, I will admit. Not that saying the rosary is bad. I'm very, very much in favor of saying the rosary. I think it's a good thing. I admire people who do it. But this whole trying to shame people into saying it, and this whole, you're not on the team unless you say it. That seems egregious to me. So, cards on the table, my likes and dislikes expressed. And I guess this has been a little lengthy, but if you're interested and you haven't seen Taylor Marshall's video, you can watch it below. I will link it below, and tell me what you think. My name's Andy Nowicki. Please check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.